NecroVMX here, and here are the comic reviews for the week of August 27th, 2008. And from now on, I'm going to be giving each comic I review a rating out of 10, with 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Starting with some books from last week, first up is Amazing Spider-Man number 568. The last arc, Kraven's First Hunt, kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth, so this new story, New Ways to Die, which promised to finally have the brand new day Spider-Man square off against some classic villains, I approached it with some apprehension. This first issue was quite good, due in no small part to the excellent artwork. The artist does some pretty great things with facial expressions, such as the look of righteous indignation on Aunt May's face, or the look of sheer joy on Eddie Brock's face. The story starts off with yet another recap of Spider-Man's origin, I suppose making this a decent jump-on point for new readers, or anybody that hasn't seen the movies. Spider-Man fights Menace again, a lame Goblin knockoff that has appeared recently. The real Goblin, Norman Osborn, is told by the government to bring down Spider-Man, so he takes his thunderbolts to New York City and confronts Peter Parker, which ends the book with a nice cliffhanger that does make you want to read the next issue. The subplot with Eddie Brock's cancer disappearing is interesting to say the least, but how it ties into the story, well, we'll find out next week. A good issue of Spider-Man that isn't saddled with too much ridiculousness. We'll say 8 out of 10. Also from last week, Robin, number 177, introduces a new Red Robin, which definitely isn't Jason Todd. The story involves Robin and Spoiler trying to stop Jason Todd, who has retaken his Red Hood identity and is unifying the gangs of Gotham. It turns out he's trying to clean up Gotham City by getting rid of gangs and corrupt cops in one fell swoop, but with Batman gone, Robin is the official hero of Gotham, and he won't stand for Red Hood's tactics. We also see that Spoiler's secrets are more numerous than at first thought, and there's a new Red Robin running around, Identity Unknown. The issue is, it has good art and is full of intrigue and mystery, which fits the book nicely. It is also good to see Tim beat Jason in combat. I gotta give this one, we'll say 8 out of 10. Starting this week's books, let's take a look at Superman number 679. This series has been trailing in quality behind Action Comics lately, and I'm happy to report this issue is definitely an exception to the rule. A lot happens in this issue. We get to see Lois being jealous of Zatanna, of all people. Lana Lang's tenure as CEO of LexCorp comes to an end. Superman gets his ass handed to him by Atlas. Bibbo actually appears in one panel. Supergirl frolics with some lions, and the last page, well, if you haven't read it yet, I won't spoil it. But it was a great last page. This is one of the best Superman comics I've read in a while, and there have been a lot of great Superman comics lately. The great narrative, artwork, and plot all falling together, and I'm surprised at the artwork, as I usually find the art of Renato Guedes to be detestable. Looks like somebody gave him a swift kick in the ass and told him to stop making every character look like some sort of mutant newborn mewling terror, because he outdid himself. A 10 out of 10. Moving on, with Teen Titans number 62, we also get a shocking last page. Actually, a shocking last couple of pages. The story itself is kind of hard to pin down. At times, I was enjoying it, while at other times I felt like I was reading Drek. The unevenness is exacerbated by yet another Titan flying off, leaving them with only 4 members. The Wonder Dog plot starts off as cutesy and clearly has something more going for it. Oddly, the end is rather ambiguous, not giving you enough details to really know how it all turned out. One odd thing is that Robin mentions the events of Batman Rest in Peace. He mentions having to deal with Damian, making me wonder if Damian Wayne is the new Red Robin, which would definitely be a spoiler at this point. Spoiler, like Stephanie. Oh well, this was definitely a lower point for the series, even if the art is pretty strange at times, though the book did have a few high moments. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. DC Universe Last Will and Testament is another mixed bag. On one hand, it's an excellent story with fairly decent art and a great ending. On the other hand, it has Geoforce. That's right, it's a Geoforce story, and it tries to sell you that Geoforce could manage to beat Deathstroke. Well, whatever. Not only that, but it retcons several things we know about everyone's least favorite superhero, and I can't get over the title. While there have been, lots of Final Crisis tie-in series and one-shots that seem to have no real connection to the Final Crisis, here's one that ties into it in a major way, and it's not called Final Crisis Last Will and Testament, it's called DC Universe Last Will and Testament. I also wonder if this came out early or something, as everyone in the book seems to think it's the last night on Earth. Well, this could refer to the anti-life equation hitting the internet at the end of the latest Final Crisis. It doesn't make sense. The timeline is all screwy. Wonder Woman is in it. I don't know what's going on. I mean, so the book, well, it's a decent story. It was about a lame character and confused me a lot. Still, it was good enough to warrant, we'll say, a 6 out of 10. On to Simpsons Comics number 145, which gives us a fairly substantial tale of Homer and Bart finding a bunch of Abe's old comic books in the attic. They sell them on the internet and open up their own comic store, which Homer quickly runs into the ground, although he does manage to put comic book guy out of business. The parts with Homer becoming more and more like comic book guy weren't all that great, but the ending made up for it. There's never much to say about an issue of Simpsons Comics. It really comes down to how funny the issue was. Unfortunately, this was one of the more average ones. 5 out of 10. Blue Beetle number 30. Oh, what can I say? For a great series, this sure was a crappy issue. I'm hoping it gets better with the next issue, especially with the threat of cancellation always looming. The artwork is rather sloppy and boring, and while there was nothing inherently wrong with the plot, the scripting was incoherent and the dialogue seems to have lost all the naturalness and spark that the first 29 issues had. Here's hoping it's a fluke rather than a morbid look at things to come. 4 out of 10. Injustice Society of America number 18, we get another great issue, and finally Lance Corporal David Reed is turned into Magog, which should be a surprise to no one, with the Earth-22 Superman looking on with concern. The rift growing in the society grows larger. Power Girl is still missing, making Flash the leader, though Hawkman seems to be to be the leader, as can be expected based on, well, he's Hawkman. Damage attempts to reach out to Judo Master, and Dr. Midnight struggles with being able to see. If the issue has a flaw, it is the art. It's very detailed and attractive at times. It's lazy at other times. Characters, even slightly into the background, lack a lot of detail, giving the issue a very rushed look. Overall, though, a great issue of a great series. Gonna have to give this one 9 out of 10. With Amazing Spider-Man number 569, we get to see the second part of New Ways to Die, which is more of the same. The Thunderbolts are hunting Spider-Man. Norman doesn't remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but remembers that they have some sort of connection. Eddie Brock is thrilled that he's now cancer-free, but when Max Gargan, the new Venom, is searching for Spider-Man and finds him instead, the symbiote splits in two, transferring Brock into anti-Venom. Cue a groan. Aww. Though I suppose it could turn out okay, I couldn't help but groan. Oh, at the thought of anti-Venom. Nonetheless, the issue is actually rather good, with competent artwork and good pacing, a solid 7 out of 10. Final Crisis Superman Beyond number 1 is annoying, to say the least, with a lot of the pointless battles, yet another fight with Ultraman, and a cop-out to tie into the latest Final Crisis. The 3D sections don't do much for me. I detest 3D glasses and anything having to do with them, and the cheap effect isn't even utilized very well there. As usual, the 3D scenes are more headache-inducing than anything, and they seem to pop up randomly as a contrast to some stories, like, say, the Phantom Zone stuff in Action Comics, which utilize it as a part of the story. 3 out of 10. Final Crisis Rogue's Revenge number 2 is a lot better, giving us a great penultimate chapter to the story. While Inertia continues to tangle with Zoom, the Rogues are also confronted by their new versions of each of them created by Libra. Showing that having weapons and being all hard isn't everything, the more experienced Rogues stomp on and exterminate the new upstarts. Captain Cold gets some closure regarding his father and sister, though he doesn't feel any better, and Libra shows why he wants the Rogues so badly and what he's willing to go through to get them. I'm still not a fan of the art style in this book. It reminds me of a bad 1990s Marvel or Image style, but it works well enough for the story. I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Next up is Trinity number 13, and for once, the series actually seems to be going somewhere. The fight scene with the crime syndicate continues from last issue, but it's actually improved. The whole melding of the Trinity's personalities is finally starting to make some sort of sense. The bad part is the backup feature hasn't improved, giving us more crappy shit with ass on the side, with lame supervillains and that annoying flirting monkey stealing more crap. This is notable, though the first time I enjoyed the main feature more than the backup. A 6 out of 10. Finally, we have Daredevil number 110, bringing us to this book's current story's conclusion, which wraps up nicely. Dakota survives being shot, and has found out that the reason Donovan was willing to go to the chair for a crime he didn't commit was to protect his son. The government and Dakota's father are wrapped up in this, and Matt brings justice down, and Donovan is released, making a deal with the government to not talk in exchange for total safety. It's remarked at the end that Matt kinda needed the win, and with all that's been going on in his life recently, this is very true. The art is at its usual level of greatness, and the noirish feel is back. I was especially impressed with how Brubaker handled Matt using his senses, something that is too often underutilized by other writers. A good 9 out of 10. Well, that's it for this week. See you next Thursday with another batch of reviews.